Welcome to another edition of Uncut. Good evening. We have a very special guest tonight, and I say very special because we've been having so many old men like myself on this show. So we're so happy to be joined by a woman and a very special academic, Abby Godoy Guillen, who has just finished her degree in her master's of philosophy degree in social anthropology at the University of Oxford. She is a Rhodes Scholar, and she did her thesis, and her thesis is on police and policing in Belize and Nigeria. And it's a very interesting 25,000 word analysis of the patterns of policing that prevail in both these faraway countries. And I've been trying to get her on this show for a while, but she's been away, and you were traveling recently. But Abby, welcome. Good night.
Thank you, Jules. You just did an amazing job, because that is definitely a mouthful. I'm glad you didn't attempt to read my thesis title, because it's very long. But yes, I'm really happy to be here. I'm sorry I couldn't be here sooner.
The thesis, you see, in my mind, is police and policing, but it's called Policing the Pandemic, a comparative study of Belize and Nigeria.
Yes.
And I want us to jump right into it. I highlighted a number of areas, but one of the early things that stood out is that you say that Belize and Nigeria have a lot in common because we inherited policing systems from the colonial masters, and our policing systems are reflective of the values that pertained in the colonial era. Explain that for me.
So yes, basically when you gain independence, there's no manual as to how to adopt an entire new system of government. And so for both Belize and Nigeria, we saw them just adopt the same colonial practices and cultures in policing. And that basically meant that instead of policing the people to like serve and protect, which is the narrative that we now try to talk about, we really were just protecting assets. And we still see that be the main thing that people do today in Belize.
So I just want to put a pin on it, protecting assets, because later on in the thesis, you talk about creating a privatized police department. So what you see is, so that baby brains like me can understand, is that a police department is working really for the protection of the elite, of the wealthy, of the landed, people who have land, people who have property. Mm-hmm. Expound on that for me.
So for example, when we look at cases of police brutality, we see that marginalized communities, which are the poor communities, the communities of color, are always surveilled and over-policed. Whenever you walk into a community that has a different socioeconomic composition, you'll notice that there's always more police presence, there's always police with guns, there's always people trying, police who intimidate through their outfits by wearing full black, wearing the masks. And so that's what we're talking about. In elite communities and communities of wealth, you don't see that. The police are silent, the police are hidden. They're still present and available to come in at any time or very quickly, but they're not a source of intimidation for the elite class.
But what you call intimidation, if Mr. Chester Williams was here, he would call security. Those neighborhoods are being secured against their own worst elements. That would be his argument. How do you respond to that?
Well, I respond simply that when we look at Belize's current police, especially those in poor communities, you'll see that they have military weapons, military-grade weapons.
Yeah.
And so that's
assault rifles.
Yeah, so that's what we have. When we talk about security and intimidation, it's a very fine line, and you see that through the paramilitarization of the police. When you have special subsections of the police, such as the GSU, come into communities to police them. That's not their space. You're adopting people who are meant to be fighting the war on drugs, fighting the war on gangs, terrorism, coming and policing communities of civilians. They're not trained to do that. So yes, you get intimidated by them because they're not meant to be walking among you with rifles just in a normal street.
Now, paramilitarization of the police department is something you speak about. And I think I read in one of Dr. Gale's studies Herbert Gale studies, that when the police increase their level of firepower, the gangs do the same. And it is actually a competition because they see themselves as at war, and they actually are. So that increasing the paramilitarization of police may give the illusion of creating a more effective security state. But what is actually happening is that it is creating an arms race in dangerous weapons held by people who can be reckless with human lives. What does what did your study say about find about the GSU? Because you believe that a lot of things turn on the advent of the GSU and the rise of this highly specialized paramilitary style of policing.
So we use the GSU just as an example. That was the subsection of the policing system that existed when I wrote my study. But basically what I found in Belize and Nigeria is that you have these subsections of the police that are created time and time again. They're always gotten rid of in only essence because they just rename them and regroup these people, and they use the same type of training and tactics no matter where they are. And so what abolitionist theorists think, and those are the people who think that we shouldn't have police at all, is that this whole idea of just bringing in more guns clearly doesn't work. If that was the case, then we would have a decrease in crime every time that more paramilitary were brought in, and that's not the case.
Now, the GSU is no more, but of course, it's basically the same. It's just been named the GI3.
Yeah.
But you argue in your research that these paramilitarized units are in fact really a change in the dialogue with the community. There's always an ongoing dialogue with the community and with the state. And police, in a sense, are a type of mediator because the police, you write, and it's a well-established fact, that the police has to be legitimized by the community. Speak, if you can, about the importance of this concept of legitimacy in policing and how it makes a police effective or ineffective, as the case may be.
So the whole idea of police is based on the fact that we, the people, give them legitimacy. We, the people, and the government have come to an understanding that there is some such thing as what is just and what is legal, even in the case of lethal. The community will accept certain deaths when carried out by the police if we find it to be moral and justifiable. So we, by that fact, give them legitimacy. However, again, when we look at the whole context and we look at the colonial inheritance, we already see a strained relationship because the police served as a way of carrying out the colonial rule. And so from then, there's been a seed of distrust. And it's now just taken on the form of us not trusting the police because the police bring harm. And it's a very complicated relationship, even for police themselves, because they have dual citizenship. They have the police citizenship and they have their citizen citizenship,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
And so it's very complicated because when you're in that uniform, you have a mandate to do something. But as a citizen, you are also affected by actions that your own people commit or you commit. And so the idea of legitimacy is just that we all accept what it is that we think is justifiable. It is only when the acts that are not justifiable and are hard to swallow that the people refuse to accept that legitimacy.
So, an incident, an event like the killing of Laddie Gillette, 13 years old, you argue in here, is an incident that undermines the legitimacy of police because it fractures the community's belief that we have legitimized you because we believe you can use lethal force judiciously with restraint. But in that case, they did not. And you make a fascinating study of how the dynamics on the peninsula work, the racial dynamics on the Placentia Peninsula, that it is almost an enclave of the elite. And you make the point in your thesis that the police department acts almost like a quick response security firm. Because you speak about the concept of privatization of police and that they adhere to neoliberal values. Explain to me all the dynamics that you believe came into play that night on the peninsula.
That one's such an interesting question because obviously I wasn't there, I wasn't even in the country, and my whole study is based on the fact of me retracing things that were posted by eyewitnesses, retracing what people were saying on the media. But when we're looking at policing from an anthropology standpoint, there is the whole theory of spatialized policing, which is policing by area, geographic area. And I find the peninsula to be such a fascinating area because of this, because you have immense wealth from the beginning of the peninsula, and then at the tip of the peninsula, and then there's a small stretch of road that has maintained the essence of what is Belizean culture to me, because it's not full of expats, it's not full of a bunch of tourists. It is a part that belongs to Belizeans, and so that's St. Bight. And so,
St. Bight, yeah. Okay.
And so I was looking at some archives, news archives, and I realized that there was a pattern every few years. We would have an influx of police into St. Bight. And when you look at the narratives that have been put out there, it's always painting the people in this particular area to be particularly troublesome or to be particularly ruckus. And yes, there have been incidents of violence. But when I look at communities like that, the first thing that I ask myself is, what reason would someone have to behave in this way? Because violence doesn't just come from nowhere. To me, violence comes from many aspects of someone's life. You have socioeconomic aspects, you have just moral, ethical, all these other things that play a factor into this. And so then I started to look at the peninsula and I began to realize that if you were someone who has a lot of assets to protect, for example, you own one of those beautiful houses in Placencia,
Yes.
and you already come in with your own racial biases and prejudices, you already have ingrained in you the idea that blackness, black citizens, citizens of color, pose a threat to you and your property. You're always on high alert and hyper-vigilant of these people.
Right.
Right?
You write, if I can quote you, and I'm interrupting you to amplify you,
Yes.
not to cross you. The exclusionary contours of Placencia's elite have created racial tensions and growing inequalities between the two communities, meaning the black community and the mostly North American white one. Evidently, after years of this dichotomy between the locals and the expats, residents of St. Bites, have taken on stereotypical characteristics of a violent and problematic population, which reinforces conflations of physical disorder with social disorder and legitimizes aggressive police surveillance. If I may continue, I'm sorry.
You may.
As black lower-class Belizeans are subjected to heightened surveillance and harassment by law enforcement to ensure the safety of white residents. In other words, Placencia, this is perfect, Placencia is idealized as a place of order and safety for its white residents, as police in this area can be described as aggressively proactive when dealing with its residents of color. Is this saying then that there are two Placencias, and in fact, those two Placencias is what led to black boy on the beach, shoot first, ask questions later?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, in a very long, winding way. Yeah, I feel that if you compare the experiences of white residents in Placencia and black residents of Placencia, you are experiencing two very different Placencias. And it's almost laughable at how hyper-policed St. Bight is. And I feel that this comes from a place of you want elite hegemony within this specific area. So what you need to do is create a way of gentrifying the area. And this just happens to be one part of the peninsula that they cannot gentrify. And so the way to do this is by casting these people as problematic and trying their best to make people willingly leave the area. And I must say, I admire the resistance of St. Bight.
And their real estate is so valuable. Where that St. Bight village is,
Yes.
is the most valuable real estate in the country, and it's been gentrified, as you said. So you were saying, I interrupted you, you admire their resistance.
Yes.
These are Garifuna people, you know they have a history of resistance from with the French on Saint Vincent. So there is that history of resistance. But explain to me, what do you think? How does this play out in the end? Because we know by neoliberal values how this plays out.
That's a tough question, just because you always hope, and I'm a very hopeful person. I always hope that the police, that the event that is happening in the peninsula won't follow the traditional steps that it has historically. I think that there has to be a change in the narrative. There has to be a different way of policing. There has to be dialogue. There has to be community-oriented way of maintaining order. It's obvious that no one has gone to the peninsula and actually had a conversation about the troubles that these people face. Instead, it's just a lot easier to categorize them as problematic versus actually tackling the issues that are that cause them to be problematic.
Right, but remember, the problematics are viewed from the prism of a community that says every day, why are they there? Now, you come off a wee land, right? You come off a wee land, but now the question is being asked, why is it there? Why does it even have to be there? This blight. That's the way they call it now, blight. Real talk, right? We have to understand this is the neoliberal perspective on the world, right?
Right.
So, you know, obviously, a dialogue is needed, but any dialogue has to be based on respect for common values.
Right.
But I don't think that is there, because there's a myth, right? We sell the myth of the paradise. That's what we have to sell. We're in the service industry. And in the paradise, you don't have poor people. The poor people are only there to serve you, right? These are neoliberal dreams, right? That we have tried to intoxicate or tried to sell to the world. But these are not sustainable in reality. So we're talking in a big way. But what your research found is that the confluence of those circumstances led directly to the death of Laddie Gillette.
Right.
Let me add one more factor to that. The commissioner of police, it came out in the trial, and the commissioner has admitted it's all right by him, that private property owners or resort owners on the peninsula, they make gifts to the police. They give the police guns. They give the police guns, and the commissioner, incredibly, says he ain't got no problem with that. That the police can accept gifts. Now you understand that when you give this type of gift, you are creating somebody who works for you. You just call a man and say, yo, I need this problem solved, and they solve it. What do you think of that?
I don't think that more guns is ever the solution to any problem. What I've worked to fight is the type of Belize that wants to protect people who are not Belizean, because they don't align themselves with Belizean values, Belizean culture. To them, they just come and inhabit the paradise for paradise's sake. They don't want to be connected to Belize. They want to be connected to people like them who come from other countries and who have the same values and elite and class, and they just want to surround themselves with more of them.
It sounds like colonization.
Really and truly it is. It's just the modern day colonization.
Right.
Just because you can't whip somebody doesn't mean you can't provide a gun for a police officer who can shoot them.
You write in your research, Laddie's death revealed, James, I think you have this screenshot, it's the one with the red on the line on it. Laddie's death revealed old assumptions about inhabiting space at the intersection of race, place, and urban policing. As Black residents of the peninsula are disproportionately scrutinized and harassed, as evidenced by the security guards called to police about Laddie and Thomas socializing on the beach. The mere presence, you write, of these boys threatened the security of the peninsula. The officers on duty that night and their actions highlighted not only their capacity for unregulated violence, but how everyday urban spaces become sites of concern when the people who inhabit them are racially categorized as threatening. The police's precarious arrangement to maintain safety and order, which arguably can be read as their commitment to maintaining the security of Placencia's elite, cost Laddie his life. Real talk.
Yeah.
Wow. So, this is what you learned in your thesis. But as you're forming these conclusions, based on the research of others as well, I see countless references. What sort of conclusions are you forming about your own country? 42 years, 43 years independent, as you are writing this.
When it comes specifically to policing, I am not convinced that we are independent. We see our police being trained by foreign officials. We see foreign countries pumping money into training people, into providing equipment, into creating a certain type of culture. And I find that laughable because it's from these Western countries who can't even maintain order and justice in their own countries,
right.
And yet we feel that their tactics are good enough for our people. And clearly it's not. If that were the case, a 14-year-old wouldn't be dead on the beach. If the tactics that you stand by were actually working, what would have happened is an officer would be trained in how to de-escalate a situation, not to escalate a situation. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that I have personally observed in Belize.
You write in your research that post-colonies like Belize and Nigeria have adopted and sustained brutal modes of domination directly learned from the sovereign as a part of the continued subservience to international systems.
Yes.
So our policing does not really reflect community values or community priorities. It just transferred the colonial elite with the economic elite of the newly independent Belize.
Yes.
It never really discovered its own values.
No, that's exactly right. And I went through archives. I went and I tried to find any information that might tell me at what point everyday citizens were consulted as to how they would like to be policed. Because what we see is there was a system in place, it stayed in place, and every time the citizens do not agree with how the system enacts its protection, we see protests and riots. And it's always the youth who are in front of these protests, who are the face of these protests. And so I especially looked at the policing during COVID-19, and we talk about the state of emergency. But I personally look at the SOE as being the state of exception.
Right, that's how you describe it.
The state of exception really just points to a time when everything we knew and understood to be justifiable was suspended because the world was in a state that we didn't understand or that we couldn't predict.
And in times like these, who feels the brunt of it?
The youth. In my opinion, it was always the youth.
Yeah, you write extensively in your thesis about how the youths are disproportionately targeted. Explain that to me.
Well, firstly, we have to acknowledge that Belize's biggest population is the youth. We're a very young country. But the reason that they are disproportionately targeted is because the culture has a continuous legacy of seeing young people as not full people. They're people in the state of becoming. So between the ages of 12 to, I would even argue 21, 22, you're not a full person in the eyes of the law, in the state, your parents. You're a person in making. And in that process, you are always, not always, but it's predominantly that you are labeled in negative connotations. For example, we always talk about miscreants and people who just can't behave themselves, hooligans. There's all these different terms to describe young people. And it's always with the connotation of them being people who go against the mold. And so, yeah, in the process of being and becoming, the youth end up having to deal with the brunt of it because there's no respect for them as full people. That's what makes it okay for a police officer to stop a 14-year-old boy on a bike going down the street minding his own business, because that person isn't a person to them. That person is someone who has the potential to be a person, but also the potential to enact violence, simply because there's no protection for them.
You're right, and this is the last quote we'll make because we have to go to commercial break. The coercive power of the state determined that police become agents of suppression against insurgents, primarily students, unionists, and political opponents. You're right that the power elite rely on corruption and repression to maintain their monopoly on political power. This means that to protect their interests, you're right, the dominant class has emboldened and reinforced the police and military to serve as their executioner. Abe, that is untrue. Stop these lies. These things are untrue. You don't really believe anything, Abe, but we good Belize. I see it on the screen there. But you don't believe anything, man. But I'm making light of it. But is this really what the research has shown you?
Yes. And I think that's why it's so important that I made the comparison between Belize and Nigeria, because Nigeria shares a lot of the same colonial and repressive regimes that we have here in Belize. It's just that they're at a more advanced state than we are. And so I think it kind of serves as a mirror to show where we could end up if we are not more careful, if we don't put more value on fixing the current issues that point to what the future would look like.
On that note, on that very serious note, we'll take our first commercial break. We're here with Abe Godoy-Guillen from Oxford all the way to Albert Street. And we want to talk about a lot more when we come back. We'll talk a little bit more about the research. There's a lot to unpack from it. But we'll also talk about other subjects that he has been involved in, which include women who are made to suffer menstrual poverty. And that's a very important issue. We'll also talk about brain drain. This highly educated woman can't find a job in Belize to pay her for her first world level degree. And that's a problem a lot of young people have. We'll talk about that and a lot more after the commercial break. Please stay tuned to Uncut.
¿Sabías que Hospital Galenia se sitúa en el lugar 27 del ranking nacional de hospitales privados de México? Estudio realizado por la Fundación Mexicana para la Salud y se ubica en el top 3 de la zona sur. Siempre a la vanguardia, Hospital Galenia, más que un hospital.
Well, I can't believe we the grill pan is full the grill. Well, don't worry about nothing. We got a new one at the Benny's Father's Day Fest.
Oh, that they happen again?
Yes, and this year,
Benny's is giving 19% off store-wide. Yes, 19% off everything.
Why we have for the bro?
but wait, don't forget, the race is still on.
The Benny's 100-car race, where racers will once again compete to claim the top prize and become the champion.
Anyways, look on the time. If you have a grill, I need to go.
Alright, yeah, bro. New whip?
Push the start.
Alright, big time. Boy!
Boy, Kagali push the start, man.
The Benny's Father's Day Fest, Saturday, June 17th, Benny's Superstore. This one you don't want to miss.
Moms, you rule the galaxy, and we know that keeping your family close is the most important thing to you. With Samsung, our phones keep you connected with your loved ones no matter where you are at any time. Capture every moment with our state-of-the-art camera technology on our S-series phones such as the Galaxy S20 FE, S23, S23 Plus, and S23 Ultra. Make Mother's Day a day she'll never forget. Make memories that last a lifetime when you gift her the Galaxy A-series phone starting as low as $309. Celebrate Mother's Day with Samsung because moms rule the galaxy.
up for Smart Share Plan and save big. Whether you're a small entrepreneur starting up your business, a student on a limited budget, or a family trying to save, this is the plan for you. With unlimited SMS, calls, and data, we help you save. Get up to 5 lines for as low as $30 per line monthly, only with Smart. Sign up today at any Smart showroom or sales manager countrywide. So get your business going, share more memories with friends, and be ready for the day with Smart.
Smart introduces real unlimited postpaid plans, providing customers with unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data. Now that's a real great deal. With Smart Plus, Share 1 and 2, and Enterprise 1 and 2 plans, you can talk as much as you want, text as much as you want, and for the first time ever in Belize, you can enjoy unlimited data with your postpaid plan. So come in and sign up for an unlimited postpaid plan and enjoy limitless possibilities. In addition, other plans such as the Flex Junior, Choice, and Select have been boosted with a lot more talk, text, and data, providing you with the best value for your budget. Be unlimited with Smart. It's time to power your dollar with Smart.
It's that time of the year when we honor our moms and show them how much we love and appreciate them. Visit us at Cellular World and we can help you find a great gift for her with our Mother's Day steals and heartfelt deals. Show your love in a special way with our crazy discounts on great gift options so you can spoil your mom without breaking the bank. From luxurious tech products to stylish and affordable accessories. Budget phones as low as $59. Tablets start at only $149. Speakers as low as $45. TVs start at only $519. And laptops and Chromebook for only $499. Wireless chargers, smartwatches, accessories, and so much more. Visit us at any of our 5 locations in Belize City, Belmopan, and San Pedro. Or shop via our virtual store on Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp at 615-5141. Shop with us to find the perfect gift that will make your mom feel extra special.
¿Sabías que? Hospital Galenia se sitúa en el lugar 27 del ranking nacional de hospitales privados de México, estudio realizado por la Fundación Mexicana para la Salud y se ubica en el top 3 de la zona sur. Siempre a la vanguardia, Hospital Galenia, más que un hospital.
Universal Hardware announces its Mega Sale 2023 to be on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, May 25, 26, and 27. Lifan motorcycles, Makita power tools, Shindaiwa trimmers, Hunter ceiling fans, Easy Care paint, and Sankey AC units. Everything on incredible discounts to increase your productivity. Universal Hardware, your solutions provider on Chetumal Boulevard, Belize City.
The next time you are passing creative marketing at 146 corner of East Colette Canal and Alenby, don't be shy. Come on in.
Welcome to Creative Marketing, where everything is possible.
We offer services like graphic designs for logos or banners or any other special request. Get designs printed on t-shirts for sporting events, special events like birthdays, or for your business. Get your polos or dress shirts officially embroidered with logos or business names. For special requests, our sewing department can get you fixed up with custom preferences. Our in-house name brands like Eliani's collection produces uniform dress shirts and blouses for work or school. Our Z-Tech sportswear produces fisherman shirts and dry fit polos for males or females. Ask about other items. In other departments, we produce customized banners and pin feathers. At Creative Marketing, there's so much more. So next time you're in need, come take a look. Call us at 207-2023, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Creative Marketing, where everything is possible.
Sign up with us this Friday, May 26th, as we celebrate the class of 2023. It's a Sun Up graduation special, and it's all coming to you live from the Radisson. Learn how to accessorize your grad hats to express your style. Decide on that perfect graduation outfit during our fashion show, courtesy Pieces and Phoenix Boutique, sharing this year's success stories as we highlight an outstanding graduate. Enjoy the pulsating rhythm of Alex Evans' steel pan, and don't forget our giveaways. It's definitely going to be a show you don't want to miss.
Run them jewels fast, run them jewels fast, run them slow mo.
Welcome back to Uncut, and we're joined again by Abi Godoy-Guillen. Just finished her thesis, her last year. She finished it in social anthropology at Oxford University, and it's about policing, the thesis. And Abi, during the break we were talking about, you know, the danger of putting assault rifles, heavy weapons, 9mm pistols in the hands of police officers who are just like the rest of us. They come from very average places in society, and they are oftentimes raised where they feel like they're powerless people. You put a deadly weapon in the hands of a powerless person and tell them you have the right to use legal force under certain circumstances. When you do that, you are creating a killer.
Yes, I think police inherently have the capacity to create violence. And that is the issue, because who says that violence is the only means to bring an end to crime? Clearly, over the past 3 decades, as you mentioned during the break, it hasn't. And I don't feel like anything's improved. Just because there's 5 less murders statistically doesn't mean anything. That's not a huge change. And honestly, one of the issues that I took with the research was I tried to look for any statistics of brutality or murder that have been caused by the police, and there's nothing out there. In Nigeria, because that's where I did the comparative study, there is statistics, but it's always provided by a third-party NGO who is trying to create this database, obviously because Nigeria is so big and it's such a big prevalent issue. But in Belize, I don't think there is a separate body or a body in government that tracks just how many aggressions, microaggressions, and actual incidences happen in Belize. And so in Nigeria, what I found that I was actually shocked by was when you compared the statistics, because, there was an increase in police brutality and extrajudicial killings during COVID-19, because that's the timestamp I chose to look at, there were more people killed by police officers than there was by COVID-19.
Wow.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
And I just wish that I had the numbers, or I had the time to have looked for the numbers in Belize, because I would have thought that would have been very interesting to look at and to determine really what's killing the citizens.
So now, you said an interesting thing in there, that there is something to be said for a demilitarized police. You believe that if you took the guns out of the hands of the police, because we have been doing suppression. I have witnessed it for 3 decades. Suppression, Dragon Unit, all these paramilitary forces, Dragon Unit, and then it changed into GSU, and now they have MIT. These are all paramilitary forces. But you believe that if you demilitarize them, it might actually have a better effect.
Yes. But that's
mean-
not to say that there isn't a process to do so.
What am I patrol with? With flowers, with hibiscus, and we need guns to patrol.
I think that
Rough men have to guard the night.
I don't think rough men have to guard the night because rough men keep messing up. So it's obviously not working. I think that there's a process and it has to happen in phases and stages, right? So that means that you're not gonna completely take every gun out at once. That's not how it works. But I think that eventually you can work to a system where guns aren't in the streets. For example, obviously I've lived in the UK now for 2.5 years, and I've never once seen an officer with a gun.
Really?
Really.
So you are living in a developed, industrialized first world country.
Right.
There are all types of dangerous people
All types.
in those communities, right? There are poor people, there are terrorists. You know, there have been terror attacks in the UK, internal terror attacks. But nobody they patrol with a gun.
No, and it's because they have special sections. You're never gonna see one of the more paramilitary bodies out on the streets. They're never patrolling the streets with guns. What you have is constables and volunteer police, which is one of the most interesting ones that I've ever heard of, which is where people can go, elect to be trained in community policing strategies, and they voluntarily go into the streets on a Saturday night and patrol. And they're not given weapons to do that.
When I interviewed Marco Vidal in 2012, and I told him that this paramilitarized policing would only perpetuate violence, and why didn't they invest time, money, and training in community policing? Mr. Vidal told me at the time, I'll never forget, he said, we tried that and it didn't work. Right? But what they mean, they tried that is, they had a community policing unit, and then you got 3 police who go out into the communities. But it was never a concerted national effort to say, let us switch the mode. Let us switch away from suppression, right? They always keep community policing, and the commission will challenge me on this, but I have witnessed this. They always keep community policing almost like a fetish. It's just like the ultimate sidebar. It's never said that, listen, we are going to abandon suppression because suppression has only resulted in more deaths and increased violence. Of course, I know there are many dangerous, criminal-minded people in our society, but having officers constantly that drive out with tons of guns, in my opinion, has not helped the situation. But do you believe that in a poverty-stricken community like Belize, that we can do community policing effectively on a wide scale?
So obviously, let's come out of the developed world narrative and look at somewhere that's not as developed. For example, Kenya.
Okay.
Kenya famously had a problem of extrajudicial killings by police officers in the urban communities.
So when you say extrajudicial killing, just for the folks at home, what you mean by extrajudicial killings is when, because people see this as a social solution too, you know. Boy, we got some bad boy. Here what we do, we got a special squad, a death squad, that then drive around, pick them up, and kill them. And that will solve all social problems.
Right.
It's a ridiculous thing, and I know it has happened in Belize, and it happened famously in one case, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, nobody has ever challenged me on it. Arthur Young, gang leader, Taylor Sally, was a state-sanctioned execution. I believe that. But I interrupted you.
I just want to add that people would think that, you know, these extrajudicial killings are an effective way of bringing an end to certain issues. But the question you have to ask yourself is, okay, you excuse it because this person is perceived to be bad. But if they can do that to someone who's perceived to be bad, they can do it to anyone.
It's a slippery slope.
Right?
They can do it to me.
Exactly.
Because I'm too vocal a critic of somebody. They, you know, the state has already said there are limits to freedom of expression. The state said that in a press release last week. there are limits to freedom of expression. We gonna tell you what those. So I'm just saying,
Right.
they can do it. So, but these extrajudicial killings. You were talking about Kenya, and I
Right.
interrupted you.
No, so Kenya, we had a subsection of people, and my professor at University of Oxford was specifically studying these people, and it was called vigilante justice,
Okay.
where a group of 12 community leaders were like, no, this is getting way out of hand. We can't protect our people. The police aren't protecting our people. We are going to take it upon ourselves to monitor the night. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't need training. All they needed was a holistic approach to serve and protect. They said, okay, someone's trying to break into this house. We're seeing it happening. We're hearing the noises that let us know that there's someone here. What did? They didn't have to kill anybody. They just went, grabbed them, snatched them up, sent them to the police, took them to the police themselves, handed them right over. Why is it so impossible to think that we can't rule out community policing in that way?
Because you're living a dream. Because if you try that, the problem is we have so many weapons in Belize.
Okay, so then I argue, why not invest just a percentage of the funds that you're using to militarize the police to remove the guns off the street? It baffles me that you can go downtown and find out who sells a gun, where the guns are, but the police can't seem to do that job on their own.
It might be a little more complex. I hear you, but yes. But, you know, there's so much corruption in the police. And
that's the problem.
Mr. Williams will attack me again. But, you know, there are ways to get guns. And sometimes it involves people in law enforcement. That I don't want to elaborate on it because they're going to come from my head. Just argumentatively. But I'm just saying that what you're saying is that concerted community action can defeat crime.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that you're saying it actually happened in Kenya because I don't see how it could happen in Belize. So let's look at a real-time example.
Well, you love to be devil's advocate. So what if I presented a situation? Why don't you take the district that has the lowest crime rate?
That's probably Toledo.
And roll it out there. Start off small. See if it works. Try it for a year because you can't do something for a month and actually get results. You have to have a long-term plan and goal.
When the PUP was elected, their mandate was to increase the police department's numbers to 4,000. That's 1% of the population. Could you imagine if they said in the United States, we will have 1% of population as police? It's a very high and disproportionate number, a very alarming number. They haven't been able to achieve that because of attrition, and they're still stuck in the 2000s. But that's what they wanted to do when they were elected, and the idea is always get more boots on the ground.
But for what? What is the purpose? What does it do? Because it doesn't address the issue that makes someone else kill someone else. It doesn't address the issue of why someone sells drugs. It doesn't address any of these issues. It's not a preventative measure. It's just trying to tackle something after it's already happening. Why are we not investing resources in actually creating something for the community to try and prevent the crime and violence? Why aren't there programs in place? It's because no one wants to put in, I mean, by no one, we're talking about government. No one wants to put in the hard work because it's not immediate results. It's so much easier to beat somebody up and say we dealt with the problem than it is to prevent someone by putting in years of work from primary school to high school to university to make them not end up on the street.
In your research, one of the main areas you discuss is you believe, and I don't, you believe that social media is a very effective way of modern protest. So, for example, after they killed Laddie, they were supposed to have a protest in front of the Raccoon Street station. And the people who went there, they say, the lone Facebook revolutionaries we got to believe because only 10 a week come out. But when it comes to posting, everybody made a post, justice for Laddie. We're going to deal with the police. But when it's time to stand up in the street, which we know as a traditional form of protest, no one came out on that occasion. Later on, we did see people in the street. But my question is, how is it that social media engagement is now, you put out in your research, is now a valid form of social protest? And James, I think we have some of the screenshots of the Facebook posts that people made.
Oh my gosh, can we please not show this?
Oh, are they Not suitable? We can't show them.
No, I'm sorry.
They're not suitable. Yeah, they're only in the research. We won't show them. But yeah,
Thank you.
how is it that...
So again, I feel that you're coming at this because you said traditional form of protest.
Yes, I'm old.
And I'm speaking of the non-traditional. Because to be very honest, I would never have known about any of these movements. I would not have followed any of these movements if it were not for social media. As an activist, and clearly I have a tradition of being an activist in Belize, it was so much easier for me to be in touch and in tune with what was happening here in Nigeria and the US because of social media. It was a network of protesters. And
So you see that as a valid form of protest?
I do, because what does coming out in the streets in the tens and thousands really achieve? It achieves people getting tear gassed. No, it achieves more violence. It makes more people suffer.
Suffering is important.
Is it important, or do you find it to be important?
I find it to be important, but this is old people values.
Right, I don't think that my generation finds any merit in suffering. And that is why it's so much easier to have a Facebook revolution.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I hear you.
I think you're coming from a place of, I suffered, ergo everyone must suffer.
Yes, no, I'm just saying that it's a process, right? What did Stokely Carmichael say? Life is a beautiful struggle.
Right, but I personally, as an activist, always felt more connected to having 1,000 people join me, have a conversation, and talk online than I ever felt having 20 people sit on a step with me outside of General Assembly.
Really? Okay. So we have to adjust our modes. And I will say, with the Commissioner of Police we have, who he's now on Facebook, he's Facebook friendly. He be trawling those comments. He look through there and say who to say what. Because, you know, he's very moved by that sort of thing. So it may indeed be an effective form of protest. I accept that. And we have politicians now of a younger age than the previous set. And I think they do respond to comments on Facebook. So you think that going forward, because, you know, they're always saying, when the unions and bring out people, when the UDP and bring out people, you're saying that's not important.
It is important. I'm saying that the social media is as important as well.
Well, we had the whole Arab Spring you mentioned in there.
Yes.
Right? The Arab Spring is where the revolution in Egypt began.
Because when you're not allowed to be outside and communicate with others, when it's a crime to just have a freedom of expression, as we now are being told we're not allowed to, online you are provided the protection of a screen. If you don't want to use your real name, you don't have to. There's nothing to link you back to this. But yet you're able to disseminate information and create arguments and valid points. And what I noticed was, because of what was happening in the US with George Floyd, we saw that it gave people in Belize and in Nigeria the ability to name certain theoretical discussions that were happening, to name certain ways of protesting that otherwise would have been unavailable had we just had the news share a video of people out on the streets. Whereas activists were providing live updates, were providing live interventions, were providing all of these things in a time when we weren't even allowed to be outside and congregate because of COVID-19.
And you say I'm trying to find the exact quote in here. I know you're worried whenever I start looking for the quote, right? But you said, you made an important conclusion about these social media type protests. And here it is. You're saying that they had a message to the state that said, see me, see us, right? That is and that's what a lot of young, poor people feel, invisibility. Social media gives them the ability to be visible, while for whatever reason maintaining anonymity or a safe distance from danger zones. Mm-hmm. Explain that for me. You said during the pandemic, social media became a productive space for the movement of movements around the globe centered around the common issue of state-sanctioned violence. Mm-hmm. Invisibility and anonymity are two different things. Right. People want to be seen. People who are unseen. Right now in this country, poor black and brown people are unseen, right? Mm-hmm. So what you're saying social media creates is a space where you can be seen without being singled out.
Yeah, and so I think that when you feel invisible, you feel invisible. You feel like no one can hear you. what social media provides is visibility without it being you that is visible, for example. Like Abby Godoy doesn't have to be the person who writes a post, but the person online can be its own person.
Yeah.
And that person has its views and is being heard and visible and it's being made known. But it provides the protection, because now you can even go to jail for writing the wrong thing on Facebook. So sometimes it's just easier to make yourself or your views visible without attaching your persona to it.
Right, you're right that social media created a non-hierarchical, dispersed, and global structure open to all. You believe that going forward, this sort of protest on social media will generate change, will force politicians and state-level actors to respond in a way that they want those comments to change on Facebook?
I definitely think so, because if it weren't for that, then all of these big leaders wouldn't be on social media, wouldn't be disseminating information, they wouldn't be responding to the comments on Facebook. And we see it time and time again.
They sure are responding to those comments.
So they'd obviously care. And sometimes it's a lot easier to care when it's an entire Twitter feed that's calling you out on something than it is when there's one person screaming at you from down the block.
Okay, we'll take our final commercial break now, but when we come back, we will talk about this really important issue right now of brain drain, where young, highly educated Belizeans find it hard to find a job, any kind of job in Belize, much less one that pays them what they would make in a developed country, or even in Mexico, perhaps. We'll speak about that after this last commercial break. Please stay tuned to Uncut.
Sign up with us this Friday, May 26th, as we celebrate the class of 2023. It's a Sun-Up graduation special, and it's all coming to you live from the Radisson. Learn how to accessorize your grad hats to express your style. Decide on that perfect graduation outfit during our fashion show, courtesy Pieces and Phoenix Boutique. Sharing this year's success stories as we highlight an outstanding graduate. Enjoy the pulsating rhythm of Alex Evans' steel pan, and don't forget our giveaways. It's definitely going to be a show you don't want to miss.
¿Sabías que? Hospital Galenia se sitúa en el lugar 27 del ranking nacional de hospitales privados de México, estudio realizado por la Fundación Mexicana para la Salud y se ubica en el top 3 de la zona sur. Siempre a la vanguardia, Hospital Galenia, más que un hospital.
Well, I can't believe the grill pan is whole, the grill. Well, don't worry about nothing. You got a new one at the Belize Fathers DFS.
Oh, that they happen again?
Yes, and this year,
Benny's is giving 19% off store-wide. Yes, 19% off everything.
Why, we have for that, bro.
but wait, don't forget, the race is still on.
The Benny's 100-car race, where racers will once again compete to claim the top prize and become the champion.
Anyways, look on the time. If you have this grill, I need to go.
Alright, yeah, bro. New whip?
Push the start.
Alright, big time. Boy!
Boy, Kagali push the start, man.
The Benny's Fathers DFS, Saturday, June 17th, Benny's Superstore. This one you don't want to miss.
up for Smart Share Plan and save big. Whether you're a small entrepreneur starting up your business, a student on a limited budget, or a family trying to save, this is the plan for you. With unlimited SMS, calls, and data, we help you save. Get up to 5 lines for as low as $30 per line monthly, only with Smart. Sign up today at any Smart showroom or sales manager countrywide. So get your business going, share more memories with friends, and be ready for the day with Smart.
It's that time of the year when we honor our moms and show them how much we love and appreciate them. Visit us at Cellular World and we can help you find a great gift for her with our Mother's Day steals and heartfelt deals. Show your love in a special way with our crazy discounts on great gift options so you can spoil your mom without breaking the bank. From luxurious tech products to stylish and affordable accessories. Budget phones as low as $59. Tablets start at only $149. Speakers as low as $45. TVs start at only $519. And laptops and Chromebook for only $499. Wireless chargers, smartwatches, accessories, and so much more. Visit us at any of our 5 locations in Belize City, Belmopan, and San Pedro. Or shop via our virtual store on Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp at 615-5141. Shop with us to find the perfect gift that will make your mom feel extra special.
Well, I can't believe we the grill pan just hold the grill. Well, don't worry about nothing. We got a new one at the Benny's Palace DFS.
What, that they happen again?
Yes, and this year,
Benny's is giving 19% off store-wide. Yes, 19% off everything.
Why, we have for that, bro.
But wait, don't forget, the race is still on.
The Benny's 100-car race. The racers will once again compete to claim the top prize and become the champion.
Anyways, look on the time. If you have this grill, I need to go.
Alright, yeah, bro. New whip?
Push the start.
Alright, big time. Boy!
Boy, Kagali push the start, man.
The Benny's Fathers DFS, Saturday, June 17th, Benny's Superstore. This one you don't want to miss.
Universal Hardware announces its Mega Sale 2023 to be on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, May 25, 26, and 27. Leaf and motorcycles, Makita power tools, Shindaiwa trimmers, Hunter ceiling fans, Easy Care paint, and Sankey AC units. Everything on incredible discounts to increase your productivity. Universal Hardware, your solutions provider on Chedamal Boulevard, Belize City.
The next time you are passing creative marketing at 146 corner of East Colette Canal and Alenby, don't be shy. Come on in.
Welcome to Creative Marketing, where everything is possible.
We offer services like graphic designs for logos or banners or any other special request. Get designs printed on t-shirts for sporting events, special events like birthdays, or for your business. Get your polos or dress shirts officially embroidered with logos or business names. For special requests, our sewing department can get you fixed up with custom preferences. Our in-house name brands like Eliani's collection produces uniform dress shirts and blouses. For work or school, our Z-Tech Sportswear produces fisherman shirts and dry fit polos for males or females. Ask about other items. In other departments, we produce customized banners and pin feathers. At Creative Marketing, there's so much more. So next time you're in need, come take a look. Call us at 207-2023, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Creative Marketing, where everything is possible.
¿Sabías que? Hospital Galenia se sitúa en el lugar 27 del ranking nacional de hospitales privados de México, estudio realizado por la Fundación Mexicana para la Salud y se ubica en el top 3 de la zona sur. Siempre a la vanguardia, Hospital Galenia, más que un hospital.
Sign up with us this Friday, May 26th, as we celebrate the class of 2023. It's a Sun Up graduation special, and it's all coming to you live from the Radisson. Learn how to accessorize your grad hats to express your style. Decide on that perfect graduation outfit during our fashion show, courtesy Pieces and Phoenix Boutique. Share in this year's success stories as we highlight an outstanding graduate. Enjoy the pulsating rhythm of Alex Evans' steel pan, and don't forget our giveaways. It's definitely going to be a show you don't want to miss.
Run them jewels fast, run them jewels fast, run them slow mo.
Welcome back to our final segment of Uncut. We'll jump right into it with my guest, Abe Godoy Guillen. Abe, we've spoken enough about policing. You and I have incurred the internal wrath of the Commissioner of Police. He's very personal, you know.
Is
He's
he?
going to attack me, He's going to attack me, but I like it. But I want to ask you about, for those viewers, this is the first time many of them are seeing you. Who are you?
Oh. Wow, we're getting into the deep stuff.
The deep stuff. I don't mean existentially. I just mean, where are you from? How did you end up at Rhodes Scholar? How did you end up at Oxford University?
Okay, so I was born and raised in San Ignacio.
Okay.
I went to Sacred Heart College, as most people do. And then I pursued...
It's three sisters? Or
It's a sister and a brother and another sister.
a
So
family,
two sisters and a brother.
So a family of four. And you all were raised by?
I was raised by my mom, but obviously my dad also plays a very important role in my life.
Okay, so...
But he lives in the U.S.
Okay, so your mom had to put, or your parents had to put four of you all through school.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to Sacred Heart?
Yes, went to Sacred Heart. Very San Ignacio of me. I probably would send my children there in the future because they have to have a little bit of realness in them.
Okay.
And then I pursued a bachelor's in English at the University of Belize.
Okay.
People told me I was bright. But there was a certain appeal to staying home, especially because I graduated high school at 15, and there was no way my mom was sending me anywhere else.
How do you graduate high school at 15?
Oh, I went to a very special primary school where they used a different system called like the AC and Christie system. And so basically it's a school for the exceptionally gifted or those who struggle a little bit more academically, because the way it works is that you're basically working by yourself at your own pace. There's a supervisor, but the supervisor doesn't actually do any teaching. The books are meant to teach you, and you're supposed to move at your own pace. So I managed to do 2 grades in 1, and so I was out of primary school by the age of 11.
So you, at the age of 11?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, okay. So then you started high school, so you finished at 15.
Yes.
And what happens next?
I took a gap year and a half, and that was my very real dose of the real world. I was working, I was doing many things, I was traveling, and at the end of that year and a half, I came back and I was like, listen, Mom, I was not made for this hard life. I want to go to school, and I'm going to put in the work.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened. So then I started going to UB, where I must say I had a phenomenal foundation. A lot of people like to look down at the University of Belize.
Yes.
But the English department has my heart for the rest of my life. They provided me the skills to write as if though I was going to attend school internationally. They made me be super analytic, and they really pushed the bounds of everything that I knew and understood. These are English teachers, literature teachers, who are also teaching you Marxism, philosophy, who are literally making you question everything you've ever known. And that definitely wasn't in the job description. And so I think that the Belmopan, especially, English department goes above and beyond for their students with the limited resources they have.
Great. So it's one of the rare endorsements I've heard of UB, because everybody usually cuts down under their breath. But you had a great experience, and you're saying that it prepared you mentally, educationally, psychically
Yes. So I have one teacher in particular. I'm going to say his name.
Say that name. I don't know that. We can write it down.
Dr. Randy Marfield.
Okay.
I'm sure he wanted to tear my hair out, and so did I. I think we wanted to come to blows had it been that way, but he really and truly pushed me. He saw something in me that he was like, if I don't make this class and our time together as hard and difficult as possible, you are not gonna grow into your full potential. Because he thought that I could have easily and breezily gotten through the normal course material without a problem, and it wouldn't have been a challenge. So he challenged me on every single front. And when it came time to provide writing samples for my application to University of Oxford, I was like, I'm gonna use this man's writing samples because these ones are the ones that actually really make you think. And so that was that man. I thank him a lot, even though he stressed me out a lot.
So how did you become a Rhodes Scholar?
Ooh. Well.
So there's a, explain for people who don't know what a Rhodes Scholar is and the program they have here in this region.
So the Rhodes Scholarship is one of the oldest, most prestigious scholarships you could ever get. It's specifically designed for the University of Oxford. It's had people like Bill Clinton. It's had people like, I'm sorry, I'm blanking because I'm on the spot. But it's been like a scholarship that a lot of really prominent people have had over the years.
Prestigious scholarship.
Super prestigious.
But there is one for this region.
Yes, so there is one, which is the Commonwealth Caribbean Scholarship, which is the one that is open to all the Caribbean nations.
How many are
including
given
Belize.
out every year?
Only one.
Only one? Great.
Yes, and Jamaica has its own specific one, because obviously the scholarship comes from Cecil Rhodes' mandate to try and educate the colonies and what have you. It's obviously a really terrible legacy.
It is.
Yes, it is. And so he had written Jamaica into his will, and so they have their separate one, but the rest of the Caribbean competes for one.
And so you won it?
Yes, I did.
Based on?
So one of the most important things that the Rhodes looks for is for exceptional leadership. And the theme that they talk about is there's no one way to lead. So you have leaders who come from STEM, people who aren't really interested in politics or any of this other thing, but who have a passion to affect change in a positive way in their communities. And so when I was at UB, and even when I was in high school, I had already become very entrenched in the volunteer industry in Belize, thanks to my older sister who took me out with Red Cross in one of her projects at the tender age of 11, 12.
Okay.
And I have to thank my mom because most people don't want their kids to wake them up at 7 o'clock in the morning because they want to go do something with the Interact Club or with FCD. And my mom was never the type of person who'd be like, no, honestly, I don't want you to do this, even though I'd be gone the entire Saturday or Sunday, whatever it took. I was always outside doing volunteer work from that age. And then when I got to UB is when I started to delve into my more revolutionary spirit. And I got really into climate action. I got really up into standing up against the administration at the University of Belize.
Right. I think that's the footage we showed of you in the promo.
Yes.
Of you walking out of class and boarding a bus and we're going at this protest at Belize,
Yup. And honestly, I feel like I have to thank my whole family because they're so supportive. My mom always said that if I went to jail because of protesting, she would happily bail me out. And I think that extends to all my siblings. And so I was never shy from talking out against injustice. But
So how did you parlay this into your Rhodes Scholarship? They ask you what kind of leader?
Yes.
Yes.
And so I essentially told them that I had no interest in being recognized as a leader. I didn't care if people in the street knew my name. All I wanted to know was that I could change one life. And I think that that really resonated because a lot of time leaders are swept up in this big idea of I must change the entire nation, whatever. Whereas I think that the world changes by acts of kindness in everyday life.
Acts of kindness?
Kindness.
Please explain.
Well, I just believe that every good thing comes from kindness. And anyone is capable of kindness, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done, no matter what their history. Anyone is capable of having and doing kindness.
So you believe these micro acts of kindness can actually create change?
Yeah.
Really?
everybody-
So kindness as a change agent.
Yes. If everybody would wake up every day and decide, I'm going to do one good thing today, there would be 400,000 good things happening a day.
So let me ask you now, because most people feel that, well, if you want to affect change, the only way to do it is to get into politics, get into that dirty PUDP game, and then you could make change and you could make some change for yourself too.
I definitely do not want to be a politician.
Awesome. Good.
No one ever 100% likes a politician, and I'm a person who wants to be of the people.
Yeah?
And the second you become a politician, you're no longer, you're allegedly for the people, but what people? Because you still have people to serve. People think that politicians just get to do whatever they want, but no. You got to think about the people who are investing in the campaigns, the people who have vested interests in putting certain people in certain positions and seats.
They're serving.
And I have no want to serve anyone other than my community. And there's
So no to being a politician?
no.
Okay, because we had another famously bright young woman who is a friend of yours, Dominique Norales. And when I asked her that question, she wasn't so clear. I know she's listening out there saying, reel up with me. But so, moving on now, so you get this Rhodes Scholarship.
Yes.
And that takes you directly to Oxford, or you have to apply to Oxford?
No, you still have to apply to Oxford, but there are certain mechanisms in place. So obviously, from the second that you start to look at what makes you able to apply for the scholarship, you have to have like very high GPA. Academic excellence is one of the things they look for. However, the academic point system that they have in place can sometimes be adjusted depending on the program that you're applying to. So you more have to appeal to the program that you want to study. But yes, there's a whole separate section. So a week after you win, you're now applying to Oxford to try and get in for the next year. And so that was also a roller coaster because you try and apply to more than one program to have like a safe fail. And the scholarship actually does a lot of work in connecting you with a mentor, somebody who's done the program you're interested in applying to. And they will review your application before it's submitted to ensure that you have a very good chance of getting in.
So then, why did you study social anthropology? What is social anthropology for those of us who don't know?
Social anthropology is just the study of people. It's
study of people.
Yes, but we're not just looking at the way people think, the psyche or whatever. We're looking at the way people's bodies function in certain spaces. We're looking at the way that we interact with certain systems. That's what it is. It's essentially, I can sit here and look at the room for the next 3-4 hours and make observations and start to think about what cultures and subcultures are taking place within this space.
That sounds like it sounds like all you did are people watch.
It is.
Man, I want that job there.
What we call it is deep hanging out.
Deep hanging out.
Yes, that's the word that we use.
This is my future.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you just gave me my future job.
Did I?
Yeah.
Deep hanging out. And it's just, they will provide you with a strong enough background to be able to list and label what the deep hanging out is trying to tell you.
Oh, man.
Right? To be able to say, okay, well, this pattern obviously points to this or whatever, but it's deep hanging out. It's looking at people, listening to people, and trying your best to not influence the space.
Okay.
So I'm not going into a room with surveys and checking things off my list because that wouldn't be genuine.
Okay.
Because my presence would already affect the study.
How does that... Now, I will ask you the ridiculous local question, and forgive me in advance. How does that relate to Belize?
Well, it relates to everything. I'm a firm believer that you can't have a successful country, economy, political machine, economy, without having research. You have to be able to understand the people. And so while I did do social anthropology, I did 2 internships in Oxford. One of which was just data science, and the second of which had to do with user research and with policymaking. And so in order to write good policy, you have to be able to identify the needs of people. And that's exactly what I do. I look at the gaps that exist, and I want to do my best to try and fill them in with knowledge.
Our politicians know what the people need. They have a high level of wisdom. They can see into my soul. They know what I need. Every time I see them, they tell me. They're very insightful people. I'm being sarcastic. But my question is, so now we see your expertise. But Abe Godoy Guillen, you cannot find gainful employment in Belize. Did I hear you right?
That is true. I must make a disclaimer though. I have been approached by 2 institutions to teach.
Okay.
That's a lovely profession, but currently it's not the skill set that I want to expand on. I want to build my policy making. I want to build my research. I want to be able to create lasting change.
But even if you accepted those jobs as a teacher, you would be making maybe 30,000 US dollars a year, maybe, or 24,000 US. I don't know how much does a teacher at a university make, 48 to 60,000 Belize a year?
I think so.
Okay.
Might even be less. Probably
Right,
is
it might
less.
be less. It
Probably
might be
is less.
It might start 18 US a year.
Yeah.
So, 36 Belize a year. So, I'm trying to understand the anatomy of brain drain. At what point does someone say, with my level of expertise, I can make 3 or 4 times that in a developed country? Explain to me what the thought process is like for you.
I have to stay true to myself. And if you go and play any of the interviews I gave after becoming a Rhodes Scholar, the plan was always to come back home. I always wanted to change and fix Belize. And that's still something that I'm very interested in doing. And I said this to Dominique earlier this afternoon, where I was like, if one person would offer me a position that I feel respects my qualifications and would actually give me the capacity to use the skills that I've learned in a meaningful way, I would stay. It's not about the money for me. It's about the work.
Right.
There's no one, I don't know if there's no one who wants that. But I think the bigger issue is that from my position and for what I get paid to do is honesty. And a lot of people don't want honesty. A lot of people don't want to hear what are the issues that they should be working on because everybody has their own agenda. I think that's why it's difficult for me to find employment.
So give me an example of that.
What do you mean?
Like how that would work, how would that conflict emerge in real time? We're speaking hypothetically, but let's talk about how that would actually play out. Let's say I am the Minister of Rural Development, me, Jules, and I hire you because you're a social anthropologist, and your research, your interaction with the community will inform my decision-making, the decision-making of the political directorate on how we direct resources, because we're going to hear what the people want.
Yes.
So you go to San Ignacio, a community you're familiar with, and let's say you go to Cristo Rey then, and they have water needs, or the community has some need. So you'll go there, and you'll do the on-the-ground research, and find out what the community really wants. And then I will say, no. You to talk to the UDP there, man. You to talk to the wrong people. Then they are only saying that because Finland come over here, and then the water and come there, and then I got my sweetheart over there, but I move on, and now I date a whole long story. Is that what you fear you will encounter?
Yes. But for example, if we talk about policing, right? What if I were to do this, and I have done an in-depth research, and I told you the necessary steps to...
Perfect example.
To fix this issue is you need to keep people in the training academy for longer times. They need to have psych evaluations, which I know that there's talks already of all of these things.
Right.
But let's say I gave you a really good thought out plan based on the needs that I saw while living in a police barrack. What if that's not what they want? What if, I don't want to get, but what if the commissioner of police is like, no, actually I want to keep guns in the street because that's what I feel is affected, no matter what you have to say. And then that would invalidate the entire time that I worked so hard on creating this research.
Right. So what we're dealing with is a lot of demagogues and hierarchy in Belize where... Bureaucracy, but also I find that the decision-making process in Belize is, shall we be kind and call it instinctual? I feel so. I feel so, man. I feel that I'm best thing. Right? And it's also RAS, right?
Right.
And I want to specify what RAS is. Returning always to the same solution. I'm not cursing. It's actually a word. We made a word for it. Returning always to the same solution.
Right.
So suppression, policing is RAS. Right? They have turned that into an art. They love it. So anytime you tell them suppression has failed, right? Dr. Gale said it very specifically. You cannot use suppression techniques against descendants of slaves. You can't. It won't work. They have DNA to resist that.
Yes.
Right? They've built up DNA to resist that. But they continue to do it.
Yeah.
So now you will go there and do your informed community research and say, you will get legitimacy from the community if you do X, Y, Z, which means putting down the guns, training police more effectively in community policing, psychiatric evaluations, and that sort of thing. Your fear is that because Belize is ruled by wanton gods.
Your words, not mine.
my words. Because Belize is ruled by wanton gods, and I said, we don't need your research, Miss Lady. We the big man, yeah. We know where they're going out there, and we know where out they need. That is your fear.
That is my fear. Because you're telling me that the work, the knowledge, the expertise that I have don't mean anything.
So we have a kingdom ruled by caprice, by people who feel so, right? That's their intuition.
And sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not intentional. I, for example, have had to come to terms with certain things. When you do research from a distance, it poses certain problems, and I've encountered this with my community service work, which is, I thought because I read things that this would apply to every community, or at least communities that are similar. Well, when I actually showed up in my community and did what I wanted to do, the reality was very different. Because there's things that you can't read in books. There's things that you have to see. So if a place only has one water source and whatever it is that you're bringing to this community would involve extra labor, extra time for them to access that water source and be able to use what you're bringing to that community, it's not gonna work. So that's why it's so important to have anthropologists who can go into the field and actually look at it holistically. What are people's everyday lives like? And what would actually work because you are working within the confines of that community?
Okay, so then what happens in the mind of the highly educated person who feels that, I don't think that Belize is ready for this type of approach that I have? So explain to me what happens in the mind of someone like that when they say, you know what? I love the country, can't stand the scene.
It's not even I can't stand the scene, because even though I talk about wanting to stay in my field and my expertise and being able to exercise all of that, I can't think of one person who has proactively come and tried to incentivize me to stay. There's been no conversation of, we can do this and that, and then we can make it work, or we can try and do this. And there's no mechanism once people graduate. There's no body that will be like, okay, how can we work with this person to fit into what we need? There's been none of that. And I think it's because the same seats are always filled with the same people, and there's no want to change that.
Status quo.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now, Abby?
Oh, so I'm currently still a part of the Rhodes Trust. So I'm here working on my nonprofit. I'm looking at menstrual poverty in Belize. I'm looking at women's health in Belize.
Menstrual poverty?
Yes.
What is that?
That is when women lack the basic products and necessities for their period, and they can't afford it. It's quite simple.
How widespread is it?
You see, that's one of the issues we have. There's not a lack of statistics, because there are statistics. It's a lack of being able to access them. Because I've approached many people to try and get these statistics, and I essentially get ghosted. They never respond to me. Or they start off very willingly and enthusiastically wanting to help me, and then still go nowhere with me.
Really?
Yes, and it's so discouraging, because I have funding for a year to come and try and do something, but it's so impossible because no one wants to help you.
Why does no one want to help you?
I ask myself that question every day, because I think I am quite pleasant to work with.
So explain to me how does period poverty manifest itself, and how does it affect young women in marginal situations?
I'm sorry, go again.
How does period poverty, menstrual poverty, affect young women in marginal situations?
Well, basically, when you don't have access to the proper products, you end up using products that can cause infections, that can lead to other diseases and health concerns. And we see that like sometimes people will just use toilet paper, which obviously is uncomfortable and isn't the best experience. Or you'll see people using alternative products that aren't necessarily hygienic. And so what we try to do is we have now tried to adopt the Girls for Days model, which is where they create at-home period products that are reusable. And it's also like a very big environmental thing. And so the problem that I've seen that I faced in Belize that I didn't think I would face is that there is a huge disparity with being climate conscious when it comes to menstrual products, where it's perceived to be either you are really rich and so you care about the environment, so you use these products because you're trying to be really woke, or they're given into really marginalized communities because they can't afford it, and it comes with more stigma and dark connotations that don't really help or make people want to use these products. So now I'm trying to overcome this mentality of reusable equals poor. Because in the first world or in the developed world, everybody is now turning to these products.
Right.
Because there's all this climate consciousness and wanting to help be good for the environment. But for some reason, climate consciousness in those contexts is seen or perceived as something that comes with privilege, whereas when you transfer those exact same products into marginalized communities, it's equated with poverty.
So, but let me ask you something more specific. Does the advent of a girl's period, a girl who is in challenged circumstances and can't access sanitary products, does it, in some cases, keep her out of school or exclude her, speak about that, exclude her from certain key inclusive activities that she needs to be a part of?
Yes. I know quite a few girls who will not attend school because they don't have the proper products, because if you don't have the proper products, you're gonna bleed through, you might mess up your dress, and this, obviously, for a girl in school, is something super shameful. It shouldn't be. But when these cases happen, there's a lot of shame around it, and there's a lot of embarrassment about menstruation and talking about menstruation.
If men were the ones that had periods, none of this shame would exist. Though.
None of it would exist.
Right? All this shame is imposed by the patriarchy.
Yeah, it makes you, periods are something that make a woman seem unclear and undesirable for a week of the month. And it's like, this is something that's happened for so long, for like literally the beginning of time, and yet we can't even be able to talk about it publicly, or just share the struggles publicly, or to even try and come up with solutions publicly.
So you don't have an estimate of how many women in Belize are affected by this. But if you had to do a ballpark figure, and I know that your scientific mind won't allow you, but if you had to do a ballpark figure, we know that 60% of our population was poor. And we know that female products are very expensive.
They're super expensive. I, myself, wonder how some people can afford this because, and this is also, I've looked at the lowest end product and the highest end product. The lowest end product in Belize can be up to $2, right? Which is fine, that's kind of doable. But we live in a sweltering hot country. These products are not comfortable to wear. They're super inconvenient, they're super bulky. You don't want the $2 pads. But circumstantial, you might have to just buy those pads because you have to. Higher end products, $12, $13, $14. If you have to do that every single month, it's a really big cost at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I myself sometimes, and this is really funny to talk about, but when you're a student who's struggling and you're in your master's and you're going through all of these things and you go to the store, there's times when you'll have to be like, okay, well, I obviously can't go with the most expensive product or the most convenient product because I can't afford it. And it's not something that like, oh, I'm on the brink of poverty. It's just that this is a luxury item now and I can't afford the most comfortable item.
The elimination of the so-called pink tax, which turned out to be only GST because we can't remove the import duties of it without agreement from quoted from in the CARICOM trading block. You have to get a special exception. But has that helped at all in your estimation?
I think it's a beautiful movement. And the fact that there are so many women working in the menstrual poverty space to me is something really, really, really to applaud. But I just went to buy pads last month, and there was no difference. So then I asked myself, you can start a movement, but what are the mechanisms in place to ensure that the movement is actually being followed through? Because it's very clear that there hasn't been a decrease, at least not in my neighborhood, of these products. So what is the removal of the GST really doing? Does that extra money that hasn't been removed go straight into the store owner's pockets? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think Cherise did a story, and she found places, but I think it was like 71 cents off on a $13 pack. Cherise, if I'm correct. But yeah, something like that. But you know, it's I think eventually if they get permission to remove it from the import duties, then it will be more consequential. But definitely. I think it was really just a political stunt. I don't want to be cynical.
Really?
No, I
think that you say that because you're a man.
No, but I think there is a will to do it. But remember, the government is run by men. They don't understand what a period is. We don't.
We obviously don't.
We don't, and we don't understand how women are persecuted, harassed, and shamed by it. We have no understanding. So I don't think there's an adequate level of urgency to get the import duties removed.
Because it doesn't affect men.
Because it doesn't affect men. It's all men making the decisions. Men, anyway. Abby, we've run out of time, and you know, you're so interesting, I could talk to you for another hour, and I'm sure I would enjoy it far more than you. But I want to thank you for appearing tonight. Are there any last words you would like to add?
Yes, today is my brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Bren. I hope you had a great day.
Shout out, there we have his picture on the screen. Shout out to Abby's brother, he's your younger.
I'm the baby. All my siblings
so he's
are
your older
older.
brother?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, that's it. And thank you for having me. This has been super, super insightful.
Yes.
And the next time I decide to do an academic pursuit, I'll definitely have you read it because you have such great questions.
I sure do. Anyway, thanks so much, and we hope that next time we could have you and Dominique appearing. And then I wouldn't
Why would you want that for yourself?
That's exactly why. I want to be brought low. I want to be exposed as a fool. Anyway, I want to thank our sponsors tonight, Bennett's Home Center, Cellular World, Creative Marketing, Galenia Hospital, Price Premier Products, Smart, and Universal Hardware. And to thank our guests again for coming in. And join us next week. We'll have another show. We're not sure yet who they have, but we're going to be having one, and it's going to be fun. So join us again next week on Uncut. Thanks again. Good night.